I'm 85 years old. I say that out loud now because it still surprises me. 85 sounds like someone else, someone already gone. And lately, I've been realizing that most of my life passed because I kept waiting for the right time. And then one day, I looked around, and there wasn't one anymore. I'm not telling this because I think my story is special. I'm telling it because I don't have much time left to tell it, and because maybe someone listening still does. These days, my world is small. A chair by the window, a kettle that whistles louder than it used to, a calendar I don't really need anymore because the days don't differ much. I wake up early, even though there's nowhere to go. My body does that on its own now. Old habits don't die. They just linger. I think about time more than I ever did when I had it. When you're young, time feels like something solid, like money in a savings account you never check because you're sure it's there. You don't count it. You don't worry about it. You spend it without looking. I didn't feel reckless back then. I felt responsible, careful, practical. I was always waiting for things to line up, waiting to be more secure, waiting to finish this first, waiting until things calmed down. I thought that was wisdom. I grew up in a house where you didn't talk much about feelings. You worked, you showed up, you kept moving. My father believed rest was something you earned at the end, not something you took along the way. My mother was always tired, always doing one more thing before sitting down. That was the air I breathed. So when I was young, I didn't chase joy. I postponed it. I told myself I'd get to it later, when things were stable, when the bills were easier, when the kids were older, when work slowed down. There was always a reason to wait. I got a decent job, nothing glamorous, an office, a desk, a tie that felt like it was slowly choking me by noon. I told myself it was temporary, a stepping stone. But the years went by, and the desk stayed the same, and so did I. I married a good woman, patient, kind. She laughed easily. I noticed that about her early on. I liked that she could find humor in small things. I told myself I was lucky, and I was. But I was also distracted, always half somewhere else, mentally planning the next week, the next raise, the next thing that needed fixing. When she wanted to talk in the evenings, I'd listen, but not fully. My body was there. My mind was still at the office. I thought presence was optional, something you could make up for later. We talked about trips we'd take someday, places she wanted to see. I said, when things settle down. I said, when I can take more time off. I said, next year. Next year became a phrase I used without thinking. We had children. I loved them. I really did. But I loved them the way a tired man loves something precious he doesn't know how to hold properly. I provided. I showed up to the important things. I missed a lot of the ordinary ones. I thought the ordinary ones would always be there. There were evenings I stayed late at work instead of coming home, not because I had to, always. Sometimes because it felt easier to be useful than to be present. At work, I knew what was expected. At home, there were emotions I didn't know how to sit with. I told myself I was doing the right thing. I was building something. Security. A future. I didn't realize I was trading pieces of my present to pay for a future that would never quite arrive. The cost didn't come all at once. That's the thing people don't tell you. It came quietly, in small ways. A birthday dinner postponed. A conversation cut short because I was tired. A child's story half listened to. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that felt like a clear mistake. Just a slow erosion. I remember my daughter once asking if I could help her with something she was excited about. I told her I'd do it later, after I finished something for work. By the time I was done, she was asleep. The next day, she didn't bring it up again. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Now, I wonder how many times that happened before she learned not to ask. My wife would sometimes look at me a certain way. Not angry, just distant. I noticed it, but I didn't ask about it. I assumed we had time to work things out. We always had before. I was good at assuming time was on my side. Years passed, promotions came, the house got bigger, the calendar got fuller, and somehow, without noticing when it happened, my life became a series of obligations I was always catching up to. I told myself this was adulthood. This was what responsibility looked like. The turning point didn't announce itself. It never does. It came disguised as something manageable. My wife got sick. At first, it was nothing serious. Appointments, tests, words like monitoring and precaution. I kept working. I thought that was sensible. Medical bills don't pay themselves. Then, one day, a doctor used a different tone. Not dramatic, just careful. That's when I felt something shift inside me. A tightening. A sense that time was no longer stretching ahead of us. I tried to adjust. I really did. I took more days off. I sat with her more. But it felt awkward, like trying to suddenly speak a language I should have learned years ago. We were together, but out of rhythm. She didn't complain. That was her way. She never accused me of anything. That somehow makes it worse. She died on a quiet morning. No big scene. Just a stillness that felt heavier than anything I'd known. I remember standing in the kitchen afterward, not knowing what to do next. The kettle was boiling. I turned it off and then just stood there. I thought about all the conversations we never finished, all the plans that stayed in the future tense. I realized then that there is no catching up. There's only what you did when you had the chance. After she was gone, the house felt too large. Rooms echoed. Silence settled into corners. My children called, but they had lives of their own by then. I couldn't fault them for that. I had taught them, without meaning to, that life is something you fit around other things. Retirement came not long after. I thought it would feel like freedom. It felt like being handed back all the time I had spent my life giving away, only to realize there was no one left to spend it with the way I wanted. People ask what retirement is like. I tell them it's quiet. Too quiet sometimes. You start noticing things you used to rush past. Dust on shelves. The sound of your own breathing. You also start remembering things you didn't think mattered. There are things that can't be fixed. I can't go back and sit on the floor with my children when they were small. I can't take my wife on the trips we talked about. I can't tell her I finally understand what she was trying to say. All those evenings I half listened, those moments are gone. Completely. Not waiting somewhere, not paused. Gone. That's a hard thing to accept when you've spent your whole life believing you could make things right later. I don't spend my days drowning in regret. That would be pointless at this age. But regret is there, like an old ache. It flares up when I least expect it. When I see a couple holding hands. When I hear laughter from the street. I also feel gratitude. I had a life. I loved and was loved, even if imperfectly. But gratitude and sorrow can sit in the same room. People don't tell you that either. If I'm speaking to you now, it's not to tell you what to do. I don't believe in that anymore. Everyone's life is different. Everyone has reasons. I just wish someone had told me that waiting feels reasonable right up until it's irreversible. I wish I had known that there is no right time that arrives with a clear signal. There is only now, and the quiet choice to be present or not. I thought I was being careful. I was actually being afraid. Afraid of slowing down, afraid of not being useful, afraid of sitting with things I couldn't control. Productivity is a comfortable hiding place. It looks responsible. It gets praised. No one questions it. But it can take more from you than you realize. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, I won't tell you to change your life. I don't know your life. I just hope you notice where you're assuming there will be more time. Because one day, you might wake up and realize the waiting has outlasted the thing you were waiting for. These days, I do small things differently. I sit by the window longer. I let memories come, even the painful ones. I answer the phone when it rings, even if I'm tired. I say what I mean more often because I don't have the luxury of postponing honesty anymore. I don't have many years left. That's not dramatic. It's just true. I feel it in my bones. I'm not afraid of dying as much as I'm aware of what I won't get another chance to do. If this meant something to you, if it stirred something quiet, you don't need to respond or act or promise anything. Just notice it. Sometimes that's enough to start. I'll keep sitting here with my tea and my memories, trying to make peace with the life I lived, not the one I kept planning. That's all there really is in the end. The life you lived, and the moments you didn't wait for.